Imagine two people earning the exact same salary. They live in the same city. They graduated around the same time. They both work hard. They both want financial freedom. Fast forward 20 years. One is constantly worried about money, still living paycheck to paycheck despite earning more than ever before. The other has investments, options, freedom, and the ability to walk away from work if they choose. What happened? Most people assume the difference was income, but income rarely tells the whole story. The truth is that wealth is usually built through hundreds of small financial decisions that seem insignificant in the moment, but become life-changing over time. A single purchase won't make you rich. A single investment won't make you wealthy. A single budget won't transform your future. But 50 better money decisions repeated for years absolutely can. The surprising part is that many of these decisions have nothing to do with earning more money. They have everything to do with how you think about money. Because before wealth becomes visible in your bank account, it becomes visible in your habits. And that's where the first lesson begins. Money tip number 1. Stop trying to look rich. One of the most expensive financial mistakes people make is confusing wealth with appearances. A luxury lifestyle is visible. Wealth is often invisible. Many people spend years purchasing symbols of success while neglecting the assets that actually create success. The problem isn't the car, the watch, or the designer clothing. The problem is sacrificing future freedom to impress people who are not paying your bills. Money tip number 2. Understand that every dollar has a job. Most people spend first and save what's left. Wealthy people often reverse the process. They decide where money should go before it arrives. When money lacks direction, it disappears. When money has a purpose, it begins building a future. Money tip number 3. Build an emergency fund before chasing investments. Investing sounds exciting. Emergency funds sound boring. But financial stability is what allows investing to work. Without cash reserves, every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. A car repair becomes debt. A medical bill becomes stress. A job loss becomes disaster. An emergency fund doesn't make you rich. It keeps you from becoming poor. Money tip number 4. Lifestyle inflation is the silent wealth killer. A promotion feels like progress. A raise feels like success. But many people increase their spending every time their income increases. As a result, they earn more but never become financially stronger. The gap between income and expenses is where wealth is created, not income alone. Money tip number 5. Learn the difference between assets and liabilities. Many financial problems begin with confusion. Assets put money into your life. Liabilities take money out. The wealthy spend years accumulating assets. Everyone else spends years accumulating obligations. That distinction changes everything. Money tip number 6. Avoid making financial decisions based on emotions. Emotions are expensive. Excitement creates impulse purchases. Fear causes panic selling. Envy triggers unnecessary spending. Financial success often comes from the ability to pause. Sometimes the smartest money move is simply waiting 24 hours before making a decision. Money tip number 7. Track your spending. What gets measured gets improved. Many people know their salary but cannot explain where their money went last month. Awareness alone often changes behavior. When spending becomes visible, waste becomes obvious. Money tip number 8. Your biggest expense deserves your biggest attention. For most Americans, housing is the largest monthly expense. Small improvements in housing decisions can create larger financial benefits than obsessing over coffee purchases. Focus on the big numbers first. Money tip number 9. Avoid high-interest debt whenever possible. Interest can work for you or against you. When debt carries double-digit interest rates, it becomes incredibly difficult to build wealth. Every dollar sent toward expensive interest is a dollar that cannot build your future. Money tip number 10. Financial freedom is built through ownership. Employees exchange time for money. Owners build systems that continue generating value. This doesn't mean everyone must start a business. Ownership can mean stocks, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, or other assets. The principle remains the same. Ownership changes the game. Now here's something most people never realize. The first 10 tips aren't really about money. They're about behavior. And behavior is where wealth begins. Because financial success is often less about intelligence and more about consistency. Money tip number 11. Automate your savings. Human beings are imperfect. We forget. We procrastinate. We make excuses. Automation removes willpower from the equation. Saving becomes automatic rather than optional. Money tip number 12. Pay yourself first. Most people pay everyone except themselves. Landlords get paid. Credit card companies get paid. Utilities get paid. Stores get paid. Then they hope something remains. Wealthy people often treat investing and saving as mandatory bills. Money tip number 13. Focus on your savings rate more than your income. A person earning $60,000 while saving 25% may build more wealth than someone earning $150,000 while saving almost nothing. Income matters, but what you keep matters more. Money tip number 14. Learn basic investing as early as possible. The greatest advantage in investing is not brilliance. It's time. Compounding rewards patience more than genius. The earlier money begins working, the less work you must do later. Money tip number 15. Understand compound growth. Compounding looks slow at first. Then it appears magical. Small contributions become meaningful. Meaningful contributions become substantial. Substantial contributions become life-changing. The hardest part is staying patient long enough to experience it. Money tip number 16. Avoid trying to get rich quickly. Most financial disasters begin with shortcuts. People chase impossible returns. They follow hype. They abandon proven strategies. Wealth typically grows slowly before it grows significantly. Money tip number 17. Invest consistently regardless of headlines. Markets rise, markets fall. News changes daily. Fear changes hourly. Long-term investors understand that consistency often beats prediction. Money tip number 18. Increase investments whenever income increases. Many people upgrade lifestyles after raises. Consider upgrading investments instead. Future freedom often depends on how much of today's raise reaches tomorrow. Money tip number 19. Learn to separate wants from needs. Marketing exists to blur this distinction. Needs support life. Wants improve comfort. Confusing the two can destroy financial progress. Money tip number 20. Avoid comparing your financial journey to others. Comparison creates pressure. Pressure creates bad decisions. Someone else's success story doesn't reveal their debt, stress, risks, or sacrifices. Focus on your path, not theirs. Halfway through this journey, something important becomes clear. Money isn't just mathematical. It's psychological. Many financial problems originate in habits developed years before money ever arrived, which leads to the next lessons. Money tip number 21. Learn delayed gratification. A famous series of psychological studies found that the ability to delay rewards often predicts better outcomes later in life. Finance follows a similar pattern. The ability to sacrifice today for tomorrow creates extraordinary results. Money tip number 22. Stop using shopping as entertainment. Many people don't spend because they need something. They spend because they're bored, or stressed, or frustrated, or seeking a temporary emotional boost. Understanding this pattern can save thousands over a lifetime. Money tip number 23. Protect your time. Time and money are deeply connected. Every unnecessary commitment can reduce opportunities for income, learning, health, relationships, or recovery. Your calendar often reveals your financial future. Money tip number 24. Invest in valuable skills. Skills produce income. Income funds investments. Investments create freedom. The cycle often starts with learning. Money tip number 25. Read more about money. Financial education compounds just like investments. One useful idea can produce value for decades. Results matter. Money tip number 27. Create financial goals with specific numbers. I want more money is not a plan. I want to invest $500 monthly is. Specific goals create measurable progress. Money tip number 28. Learn negotiation. Salary negotiations, business negotiations, purchase negotiations. Negotiation is one of the highest paying financial skills most people never develop. Money tip number 29. Protect your credit. Credit influences borrowing costs, housing opportunities, financing options, and financial flexibility. A strong credit profile creates advantages that many people underestimate. Money tip number 30. Don't let small subscriptions become large leaks. Most financial damage doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly. A little here, a little there. Then years pass, and the total becomes surprisingly large. Now consider a different story. A woman named Sarah began tracking every recurring expense after feeling constantly broke despite earning a decent income. Nothing looked alarming individually. A streaming service, an app subscription, a premium membership, a forgotten software plan, several convenience services. Individually, they seemed harmless. Together, they represented thousands of dollars annually. That realization changed her entire relationship with money. Not because she became extreme, because she became aware. Awareness is often where financial transformation begins. Money tip number 31. Build multiple income streams over time. A single source of income creates vulnerability. Multiple sources create resilience. This doesn't need to happen overnight. The goal is gradual diversification. Money tip number 32. Keep learning even after financial success. Success can create overconfidence. Overconfidence can create expensive mistakes. The best investors and business builders remain students. Money tip number 33. Avoid financial decisions made from envy. Envy rarely produces good outcomes. People purchase things they cannot afford to imitate lifestyles they don't fully understand. The result is often financial stress disguised as success. Money tip number 34. Understand opportunity cost. Every dollar spent represents another option abandoned. The true cost of a purchase includes what that money could have become. This is one of the most powerful concepts in finance. Money tip number 35. Don't ignore retirement planning. Many people assume retirement is far away. Then suddenly, it isn't. Time moves faster than expected. The earlier retirement planning begins, the easier it becomes. Money tip number 36. Focus on long-term trends, not short-term noise. The financial world produces endless distractions, predictions, headlines, market fears, market excitement. Wealth is often built by ignoring most of them. Money tip number 37. Learn basic tax strategies. You don't need to become a tax expert, but understanding how taxes affect investments, income, and retirement accounts can significantly improve outcomes. Money tip number 38. Insurance is protection, not investment. Many people dislike paying for insurance until they need it. The goal isn't excitement. The goal is preventing catastrophe. Money tip number 39. Avoid co-signing loans without fully understanding the risk. Good intentions can create serious financial consequences. If the borrower cannot pay, responsibility may become yours. Always understand what you're agreeing to. Money tip number 40. Build financial systems, not financial motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Systems endure. Budgets, automation, investment plans, saving schedules. The goal is making good decisions easier and bad decisions harder. The final 10 tips may be the most important of all because they focus on the deeper relationship between money and life. Money tip number 41. Define what enough means. Many people spend their entire lives chasing more without deciding how much is actually enough. Without a definition, the pursuit never ends. Money tip number 42. Don't sacrifice your health for money. Poor health can erase years of financial progress. Medical costs are real, but so is the loss of energy, happiness, and quality of life. Health is one of the most valuable assets you will ever own. Money tip number 43. Invest in relationships. Strong relationships often create opportunities that money alone cannot buy. Career growth, business partnerships, support systems, knowledge sharing. Relationships compound too. Money tip number 44. Teach your children about money. Financial habits often pass between generations. Teaching basic financial principles may become one of the highest return investments you'll ever make. Money tip number 45. Avoid making money your identity. Money is important, but it is a tool, not a personality, not a measure of human worth, not a complete definition of success. Money tip number 46. Use wealth to buy freedom, not status. Status requires constant maintenance. Freedom creates lasting value. Freedom means options. Freedom means flexibility. Freedom means control over your time. Money tip number 47. Understand that financial independence is a spectrum. Many people imagine financial freedom as an all-or-nothing destination. In reality, every dollar invested increases freedom. Every debt eliminated creates flexibility. Progress matters. Money tip number 48. Appreciate the power of consistency. Extraordinary outcomes often emerge from ordinary actions repeated for years. This principle governs fitness, relationships, business, and money. Consistency quietly beats intensity. Money tip number 49. Focus on net worth, not appearances. Net worth tells a deeper story. It reflects assets, liabilities, and long-term progress. Appearances can be rented. Wealth usually cannot. And finally, money tip number 50. Remember why money matters in the first place. This may be the most overlooked lesson of all. People spend years pursuing money without asking what they actually want it to accomplish. Some want security. Some want freedom. Some want time with family. Some want meaningful work. Some want peace. Money itself is rarely the final goal. It's the bridge to something else. And that's where the biggest financial realization emerges. The purpose of money isn't accumulation. It's alignment. Alignment between your resources and your values. Alignment between your actions and your future. Alignment between what you earn and the life you truly want to live. The wealthiest person in the room is not always the one with the highest income. It isn't always the one with the largest house, or the most expensive car, or the most impressive lifestyle. Sometimes it's the person who has quietly built enough investments, enough flexibility, enough security, enough freedom. Because after decades of studying money, markets, businesses, and human behavior, one truth continues to appear again and again. Financial success is rarely the result of one dramatic decision. It's the result of hundreds of small decisions made when nobody is watching. The decision to save instead of spend. The decision to invest instead of consume. The decision to learn instead of ignore. The decision to think long-term when everyone else is thinking short-term. Those decisions may seem invisible today, but years from now, they become visible in every part of your life. Your opportunities, your stress levels, your choices, your freedom, and ultimately, your future. Because money changes lives, but the habits behind money change them first.